Every NBA season tells a story. But 2025 was not a fairy tale. There were heartbreaks.
And Tatum is hurt. Tatum is down.
It's really a matter of protecting your dreams. And when you do that, then the world just seems limitless.
And every time a star went down, it made you wonder, if the old guard is fading, who takes their place?
Giddy for the win! Go!
There were surprises, young players stepping into the light.
Grimes with one, gets a good look, and he drills it!
But were those just moments, or the first steps of a new era? And then came the moment that flipped the entire league upside down.
We're just receiving word of a massive trade in the NBA. The Lakers have traded Anthony Davis to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Luka Doncic.
He's supposed to have a statue! Hell yeah! He's supposed to have a statue!
Even if Luka can change teams, is anything in this league stable anymore?
And they're always on the road as Doncic knocks down a three-point.
Competition boiled over.
Oh my goodness! Gets thrown to the floor!
Legends turned back the clock.
Luka in the middle, back to LeBron!
But how much longer can they hold on? And the future finally announced itself. Even the underdogs and the young new era rose higher than anyone imagined.
The NBA champion resides in Oklahoma City.
Small markets, young cores. Can they really define what comes next in the league? Guys, 2025 wasn't clean. It wasn't perfect, but it was unforgettable. And through it all, one question kept hanging over the league. Where's the NBA headed? This is the story of the 2025 NBA season. In the off-season of 2024 going into the 2025 season, pieces were moving around, money was flying, and teams were ready to retool. And honestly, I don't even know where to start because there was a lot of places, but I'm just gonna start here. The Thunder swapped Josh Giddey with Alex Caruso. The Hawks got out of the DeJounte Murray business, got some draft picks, and added a defensive stopper in Dyson Daniels. And the Mavs easy money sniped one of the best shooters in NBA history in Klay Thompson to pair with the GOAT himself, Luka Doncic, ending his legendary Warriors run. But there's one team I want to go more in depth about, the New York Knicks. Remember them?
The key, loses to Frazier, racing ahead of the field, Frazier made the steal.
I know they haven't been relevant in like 100 years or since whenever Carmelo was on the team.
Anthony for three. Puts it in.
But that's changed. After a valiant run to the Eastern Conference Finals second round in 2024, led by a 6'2" second coming of Celtics Isaiah Thomas named Jalen Brunson, and a rebounding machine named Josh Hart.
Cross court to Hart. Josh Hart a three-pointer. Puts it in. Josh Hart.
They seem kinda close to a championship, but not quite there yet. So they decided to go all in. To start, they re-signed one of the best wing defenders in the NBA in OG Anunoby to a huge 5-year, $212 million contract.
Anunoby running the floor, catch goes inside and throws it down.
Still, there was an issue. They didn't have enough players from the Villanova Wildcats, the alma mater of Brunson, Hart, and DiVincenzo. So they went out and traded 5 first-round picks and a swap to the Brooklyn Nets for Mikal Bridges, one of the best role players and maybe the perfect role player for the Knicks, who had blossomed into a 20-point-per-game scorer in Brooklyn. Oh yeah, a Nova alum as well. Now the roster legit had a third of the 2017 Villanova team, but the Knicks didn't stop there. Just days before training camp, they would pull off the craziest deal of the offseason. Yes, they sent Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a future first to the Minnesota Timberwolves for the former #1 overall pick, a 4-time All-Star, and the best 7-foot sniper in the NBA, Karl Anthony Towns. Although they lost one of their Nova boys, the move made the Knicks one of the most well-rounded teams in the NBA. Their offense revolved around a cold-blooded killer in Jalen Brunson.
Oh my goodness, the touch off the window.
The defense wreaked havoc with 2 scary lockdown defenders in OG and Bridges, and they had an all-NBA big man in Cat who could space the floor, get a rebound, post up, and really just lighten the scoring load off of Brunson. Its starting 5 of Brunson, Hart, Bridges, Anunoby, and Towns seemed tailor-made to counter the defending champ.
7 on the 24 for Tatum. Goes at Doncic, gets inside, layup, shot is good.
The Boston Celtics. Dun dun dun. But they weren't the only Eastern Conference team retooling their entire roster. Just 2 hours down I-95, Daryl Morey was cooking. The Sixers were coming off yet another year from the Shadow Realm.
Harris is on him, cross court Anunoby. Anunoby a 3. Bang!
Let's recap them really quickly. So James Harden forced his way out, as we know, and he said he hated Daryl Morey. And so they traded him for a bunch of role players like Nick Batum and Marcus Morris, leaving Joel Embiid to run the team by himself, plus a young Tyrese Maxey, but Embiid endured yet another devastating injury, this time a torn meniscus halfway through the season.
Joel Embiid is down on the ground.
and he rushed back for the 2024 playoffs, giving the Sixers fans a glimmer of hope, including this crazy dunk.
Joel Embiid.
And yet, the team collapsed in the playoff series against the Knicks,
He's going to drive it.
falling in 6 games and setting up a consequential offseason.
New York advances.
So, there. Wild. And if we're being honest, we got to give props to Joel because he really shouldn't have came back into the playoffs because he was like really injured and messed up, but here we are. But again, there was a glimmer of hope. After the Harden trade, the Sixers had pretty much cleared up all their cap space outside of Embiid and Maxey. That meant they had hundreds of millions of dollars to throw at a disgruntled star. Maybe it'd be Lauri Markkanen, maybe OG Anunoby, maybe Mikal Bridges. Slowly though, that list dwindled. Markkanen signed an extension with the Jazz, and we covered the Knicks moves, and suddenly, the Sixers didn't really have many options left, and the money saved seemed like it wasn't really gonna go anywhere. Until the GOAT himself, PG, came along. Smooth PG, PG-13, Podcast P, Pandemic P, Playoff P. The Clippers star coming off a 23-point per game season and an all-star appearance, Paul George. George and the Clippers did not see eye to eye on contract negotiations, as we know now, leading him to search for a new home and leading him into free agency. And the team with money and championship aspirations, well, that was the 76ers. And so, the Sixers signed the 34-year-old George to a 4-year, $211 million contract.
I thought everything just aligned where they're at and where they're trying to go and where I'm trying to get to as well.
It created maybe the best big three in the NBA: Embiid, Maxey, and now Paul George. Okay, to be honest, I didn't even believe that myself when I said it, but I was trying to see if I get it out, but yeah, no. After so many disappointments like Ben Simmons, Markelle Fultz, Jahlil Okafor, Kawhi's buzzer beater, and James Harden, finally, the Sixers had found a perfect, quote-unquote, nucleus that only seemed possible in a 2K My NBA save, or My League, depending on which era of 2K you played in. Championship dreams weren't dreams anymore. They were real, or real contenders, I should say.
Do you feel that, hey, we've got to go compete for a championship this year?
Absolutely. 100% is pressure.
And there was a couple of other things I was excited about in the summer of 2024, which I'm just gonna name off like really quickly. To start, the Pacers actually made some really good moves in the summer. They gave TJ McConnell an extension and Nembhard an extension. Over in Clippers land, Zubats would get his money, and with the Cavs, Jarrett Allen got another extension. Westbrook decided to go to the Nuggets, and who knows how good they were gonna be. And Gary Trent took an all-time pay cut to add shooting to Milwaukee. Over in Detroit, they realized they needed some more veteran presence. So they added Malik Beasley, a veteran who can shoot, and Tobias Harris, a veteran who made a lot of money. The Thunder wanted to make smart decisions and ended up locking these two guys in. Isaiah Joe got a big extension, and so did Aaron Wiggins. And Chris Paul to the Spurs. Did not see that coming. Yeah. I mean, great for him to be a mentor and run the second unit, maybe some starting minutes, but was there any other team he could have gone to? And one of the bigger sign-in trades of the summer with DeMar DeRozan. He would end up going to the Kings, marking the end of the Bulls run and the end of the Kings run. And last but not least for my rapid fire section, Portland Trailblazers and the Wizards would end up making a trade, sending Malcolm Brogdon and Bub Carrington to the Wizards. And for Portland, I think they won this trade. They would end up getting what was like a 23-year-old Denny Advia, who is someone to watch out for if you've never heard his name. The kid can ball. Okay. Meanwhile, as the Knicks and Sixers restructured, other teams solidified around the edges. The Cavs signed its star Donovan Mitchell to an extension and doubled down on the core that reached the second round in 2024. As mentioned earlier, the Thunder added defensive stopper Alex Caruso and a real big man Isaiah Hartenstein to pair with the wiry shooting forward in Chet Holmgren. The Celtics ran it back with the same squad that won a championship the year before, and in Clay's place, the Warriors compiled a long list of role players to complement Steph and Draymond. Oh shoot, and we forgot someone very important.
With the 55th pick in the 2024 NBA Draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select Bronny James.
All ready? All right.
The media will hype him up all day, but I only see him as a 55th pick, and I will treat him as such. As we were reaching the beginning of the 2025 season, I don't know if it was just me, but lots of teams realistically could have reached the NBA Finals. The remade Knicks, the Jokic-led Nuggets, and the Anthony Edwards-led Timberwolves were all knocking on the door. But first, they'd have to dethrone the Celtics, the heavy favorite and possibly the first repeat since 2018, guys. So, the 2025 season has now began. Multiple teams rose from the dirt. They really came out of nowhere and looked like threats to the Celtics. First team I want to talk about, the Cavs. No, this isn't the LeBron Cavs or the Kyrie Cavs. This is Donovan Mitchell's Cavs, Darius Garland's Cavs, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. They got off to a blazing hot start, regenerized after their disappointing second round exit to the Boston Celtics during the previous playoffs. To open the season, they won 5 games, and then 10, and then 15. By mid-November, they were 15-0. You might simply think that Donovan Mitchell took over, but actually he had taken a step back, shooting less and really accepting Kenny Atkinson's system, which moved the ball around and allowed other teammates to shine. Garland, finally healthy after a jaw injury last season, looked like he was ready to go and was looking crafty, scoring at will at all 3 levels and setting up the offense. Mobley developed into a star, an all-around terror on both ends, and a really flexible forward who could handle the rock, bully little guys at the rim, and even hit threes. Oh yeah, he was also blocking shots. Dare I say he looked like a baby Giannis? Maybe? Well, most of all, the team just fit. New head coach Kenny Atkinson had the ball flying around the floor with constant cutting and movement that took opponents off guard.
Boy, the Cavs are something else offensively. Garland and Allen, that was...
In the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder were matching the Cavs' dominance. And it all started on defense. With an all-around nightmare lineup. Lou Dort was putting you in that torture chamber and locking up all the offensive players. Crusoe and second-year guard Cason Wallace really got beat off the dribble. Jalen Williams maybe was the most versatile of them all, able to stiff guards, switch on to forwards, and contest shots at the rim. And Chet was always waiting, lurking, and ready to swat shots. A 7'1", essentially pogo stick who would block more than 2 shots per game. But I think the most impressive thing about this team was how they played defense as a team. They clogged the driving lanes, arms everywhere, and forced turnovers at the highest rate in the league. And on offense, they had one of the best offensive players in the league, the mid-range sniper, the fearless shot maker, dang near the quietest dude in the NBA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai, once again, had elevated his game to another level, which I didn't even see coming. The mid-range was just crazy. He still somehow got it off at all levels, regardless of how defenders were on him. But he also took more threes per game than he had the previous season, nearly 6 per game at a 37% clip. The Thunder, as a result, sprinted out to a 30-5 start. Sheesh.
Well, first off, bro, the swag is crazy, by the way. I had to say it, bro.
But there were other teams beginning to find the rhythm too. Heck, even the Pistons, the same team that was getting ridiculed just a season or 2 before. Well, they weren't so sad anymore. Cade looked like a legit superstar. No, he is a legit superstar. A 6'6" point guard and a pick and roll master who could shoot or pass over you. Someone who plays the game at his pace and really just controls the whole team. If you had the chance to watch any of the Pistons game this season, it was a beauty to watch. It was like slow motion jazz. After a strong finish in the 2023 through 2024 season, the Rockets looked ready to make a playoff push with their young core, led by Alperen Şengün, Jalen Green, and the budding superstar, Amen Thompson. And let me tell you, this team was looking real different. But maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm being too positive. Because while these teams thrived, other teams were falling apart. And before I roast the Sixers too hard for their bad decisions, I should probably admit I've got some of my own. Everyone's trying to optimize what they've got, whether it's done maybe managing cap space or me trying not to start the wrong receiver yet again. I'm in my second year doing NFL and NBA fantasy, and I gotta say it's becoming one of my favorite things, but it's a lot more work than I expected. I mean, keeping up with who's actually starting, comparing players, and deciding whether a trade makes sense eats up a lot of time. That's why I use Walter Picks, the sponsor of today's video, and an app that makes those decisions a lot easier. Walter Picks is a mobile app powered by machine learning that combines fantasy and betting insights in one place. All I do is sync my league and use tools like the lineup optimizer, trade finder and analyzer, and playoff odds to make confident decisions instead of scrolling through 100 different stats or searching all through Reddit to see what other people think of these players. Like this week, I was deciding between Khalil Shakir or Kayshon Boutte. Both kind of consistent, but also wild cards. And Walter Picks gave me the insights I needed to decide who should start. There's a free tier with unlimited league sync, basic player comparisons, and draft tools. The pro plan unlocks all fantasy tools, and the elite plan adds the full betting suite, player prop evaluator, game betting insights, line shopping, win probabilities, and daily fantasy optimizers for DraftKings and FanDuels. It's built to help users spot value before the line moves, whether you're tracking betting trends or just analyzing games like I do for NBA matchups. Right now, I'm on the Elite plan, and my favorite feature is the Trade Finder and Analyzer. It makes trade offers way easier to judge. There's even a Discord community with extra insights and real-time updates. Download Walter Picks and join thousands of fans who are winning more. And get a free 7-day trial by using the link in my description or by scanning the QR code that's somewhere on the screen right now. Again, thanks to Walter Picks for supporting the channel, and guys, 7-day free trial. Might as well check it out. Alright, let's get back to the video. And honestly, I hate to say it, but this reality TV show-like drama was probably a bigger storyline to open the season. You remember the Sixers and how good they were supposed to be with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George? Well, it was an absolute disaster. Embiid started the regular season on the bench, and it was under weird circumstances. The team insisted that he wasn't injured, and he hadn't suffered a setback from his previously torn meniscus, they said. They promised that he was merely ramping up and getting conditioned to play. But that ramp must have been pretty long, because 3 games passed, and then 6. And Embiid was nowhere to be found, with very little information about the injury.
I've done way too much, for this city, putting myself at risk to be treated like this.
The Sixers, as a result, collapsed. PG began the year on the injury report as well, after it was really an accident, a knee hyperextension in the preseason. And even when he returned, it just didn't look the same. He continuously settled for long, contested pull-ups and didn't have that same bounce that he did the year before. Also, that brace that they had him playing in was ridiculous, and again, he probably shouldn't have been playing. Maxey, who was essentially left by himself, struggled to carry the team with little help, except from the GOATs. Okay, not actually GOATs, but for the Sixers, they basically were. Jared McCain and Gershon Yabusele. Nah, but for real though, if it wasn't for those two, I think the city of Philadelphia might have legit exploded. But the biggest issue, of course, it was pretty simple. The big fella wasn't playing, Embiid. And without him, this was not a playoff team, let alone a championship team. The Sixers opened up on a 1-win and 7-loss record, and it just kept getting worse and worse. Maxey, the team's Iron Man, even got injured. Finally, after the first 2 weeks, it looked like Embiid might actually return and all of Philly's problems would be solved. And then in one of the more distasteful things that happened in the NBA, a Philadelphia Inquirer reporter wrote a column criticizing Embiid's lack of availability, mentioning his little brother Arthur, who died in a car crash in 2014. Embiid, let's just say, did not take it very well. He pushed the reporter in the locker room and told him, if it happened again, you're gonna see what I'm gonna do to you. Yeah. With each day, it seemed like something worse and worse would happen to the Sixers. But if you're looking for a silver lining, the Sixers fans had another team to sympathize with, the Phoenix Suns. And that started even before the season began, when their owner, Matt Ishbia, said this.
Ask the other 29 GMs. 26 of them would trade their whole team for our whole team and our draft picks and everything as is. Like, the house is not on fire.
Let me be clear. 26 teams would not trade places with you. I mean, try and find 5. The Suns had amassed the 2nd largest payroll in the NBA, $228 million, and way over the second apron, restricting their transactional options. The second apron. Okay, real quick, let's go over this because it can get pretty confusing, but I want to make a rundown for anyone who doesn't really understand it. If a team goes over $188 million in payroll, they enter what's called the second apron, a form of financial and NBA jail. In other words, surpassing $188 million locks major restrictions on teams. For example, they need to perfectly match salaries and trades. Also, they can't combine players and deals. So like you can't trade 2 players that equal 50 million in salary for 1 player that equals 50 million in salary. And to add to it, if you stay in the second apron, you can get your draft picks frozen out. The idea was it would help limit super teams and dynasties, distribute the talent, and aid small markets in competing, essentially adding more parity into the game and looking more like the NFL. But who wants to go to financial jail? With all these new rules, none of the teams wanted to go there. But still, some teams, like the Suns, went over the aprons anyways. But it wasn't for nothing. In return, they formed a 3-headed monster with some of the most dominant offensive players in the last decade: Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal. Yet, it never clicked, which kind of makes sense when you have 3 players that all kind of do the same thing in a way. By early December, they were just 12-11. There were also injuries, and their new coach, Mike Budenholzer, just couldn't connect with the team, it seemed like. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. And since their payroll cost so much, they couldn't add a ton of depth pieces, forcing them to play Bol real minutes, which, let me say, one of my favorite players, but for a team in the second apron, I don't know if Bol should be on the floor. But here's the central issue. In my opinion, the stars just didn't fit. It was clear that this era of the Suns had probably run its course. So yeah, it was a crazy start to this season. And we haven't even talked about the Lakers or Warriors, which is kind of crazy because they kind of run the league. Well, But to be honest, at this point, they weren't much to talk about. The Lakers were just old and kind of boring, and the Warriors had tried to rebuild after losing Clay by prioritizing depth over star power. And they did get off to a hot start, where Buddy Hield / Buddy looked like the new Splash Brother. But with the hot comes the cold, and they cooled off to a 14-12 record by December 19th. Here's the problem though. The league continued to push both of the teams. It seemed like every time I turned on ESPN, it would be the Lakers or the Warriors, or LeBron, or Steph. And I just kind of wanted to fall asleep at that point. Hopefully I wasn't the only one. There were legit concerns in NBA circles that interest in the league was struggling. Most notably, as you may have heard, ratings had fallen. Midway through the season, they had dropped by 19% from the previous year. And it left me wondering what caused this dip. Was the NBA prioritizing the old guard too much? Were there too many games? Why hadn't any younger stars like Wemby, Job, Zion, and Ant taken the torch? Was the NBA helped or hurt by its newfound parity and lack of dynasty? And last but not least, how many more threes are we going to be shooting per game? For a few months, it felt like this state of the NBA discussion was happening like every day on Twitter, SportsCenter, Bill Simmons podcasts, TNT, ESPN.
If you're just going to come out and have a three-point shooting contest every night, it's a copycat league.
And to be quite honest, if I'm gonna foreshadow just a little bit, I don't think it's disappeared. They all revolve the same issue. What is the future of the NBA once Steph, KD, and LeBron move on? Just to kind of segue off the video, but I do think in the next 1 to 3 years, we're gonna find out who really takes the torch from these guys. Every generational handoff in the NBA has had this like sorting period, when some guys rise and others, well, go away. Think about it. When MJ left, there was that small vacuum, and it took Shaq and Kobe to step in to define the 2000s. Let's go a little bit farther back, and Dr. J, and Kareem I guess too, owned the 70s. But it was Bird and Magic who transformed the NBA in the 80s. Right now, we're in that same kind of moment. Giannis, Jokic, Luka, Tatum, Edwards, Wemby. The next few years will decide which of these guys truly become the faces of the league, and which end up just as great players in the background of someone else's era. But to end the year, there was drama, straight out of Love Island drama. And this time, it was led by none other than Jimmy Butler.
Developing story here on SportsCenter. The Miami Heat have suspended Jimmy Butler for 7 games.
So where do we start with the Jimmy Butler drama? It could be traced back to Butler's comments nearly 6 months earlier, comments that he made during the 2024 playoffs. He was injured, unable to play as the Heat fell in the first round, and yet he made this comment.
If I was playing, Boston would be at home. New York damn sure would be fucking at home.
And then Pat Riley shot back.
If you're not on the court playing against Boston or on the court playing against New York Knicks, you should keep your mouth shut.
Then Riley refused to give Jimmy a contract extension. I get it though, because Butler was like 35 years old. And can you guess the most regular season games that he played in his 5 years with the Heat? My first thought was maybe a max of 50 games in a season played, but it was actually between 50 and 65 games a season. But as we know, it's all about the playoffs for Jimmy, and he has not disappointed the Heat in games played for them or the numbers he was putting up. Still though, Butler felt very disrespected by the lack of a contract extension. He had single-handedly carried Miami to two NBA finals in 4 years. He was an all-star level player, and playoff Jimmy is one of the best all-time playoff risers. By January 1st, the Heat were sputtering. Despite a strong core featuring Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Tyler Hero, the team was 16-14. Maybe, just maybe, this team had run its course, and others had surpassed them. Then the drama really started. Jimmy was suspended for conduct detrimental to the team, and suspended again for missing the team plane, and then suspended again for leaving practice. It got really ugly.
Jimmy Butler has indicated to the Miami Heat that he wants the organization to trade him. He wants to play anywhere but Miami.
When Jimmy wasn't suspended, he looked unengaged on the court. He mostly just hung out in the corner, and he was done with it. All the drama, the disrespect, well, I guess he started the drama, but you know what I mean. All of that, tit for tat. And so he asked for the trade and said his days in Miami were over.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
That set off a cascade in the NBA. Who would get Jimmy Butler? Could the Suns salvage their season and swap Bradley Beal for Jimmy? What about the Sixers? Maybe they could do something? The Warriors? Anybody home? Jimmy Butler captivated the NBA, but still the casual fan didn't really seem to care. The NBA needed an oomph, something to make people excited again, something to reignite interest in the low ratings. The NBA needed to find their new identity outside of the old guard. And then boom, in the middle of the night, the basketball god swooped in.
We're just receiving word of a massive trade in the NBA. The Lakers have traded Anthony Davis to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Luka Doncic.
The Luka trade was more than just any old trade. It was a cultural phenomenon.
I've been a Mavs fan my whole entire life since I've been a baby. This is the worst moment in the history of my life. This is ridiculous. Dirk got a statue right there. It's supposed to be Luka right there. Why we don't got a statue for Luka?
People who didn't even know basketball saw the number 77 looking kind of weird in a purple and gold jersey on their Twitter. The Luka trade in many ways re-energized the NBA, so much that conspiracy theories started popping up. For the record, I'm not saying the NBA rigged this trade yet, but some of these conspiracy theories are just too good. Check some of these out that I made in another video. And number 1, the most talked about, the Vegas theory. Some say the Mavs' new ownership group doesn't care about the team. They care about the market. And Luka, as beloved as he was way too high profile to move cities with. So they dealt him, tanked the value, and now maybe they're headed to Vegas. Do I believe it? I don't know, but crazier things have happened in life. Yeah, these are just some of them, and honestly, there was probably a million more. But the Luka trade gave the league the boost it needed. It excited the hard-nosed fans, sending them through the depths of emergency podcasts.
The Lakers just got Luka Doncic.
No, they didn't.
We traded Anthony Davis.
No, you didn't.
It also attracted the casual fans who might have tapped out for football season, only to return. It gave new life to LeBron, who seemed primed to ride out the end of his career on a Lakers team that really couldn't make it out of the first round. Remember how we said the NBA was searching for its identity? A new team, a new star to carry the torch. Well, it finally found someone to pass it to, literally. It made the Lakers title contenders instantly, and it gave the NBA a star face on a premier team in a major city. LeBron would pass the torch to Luka, paving the way for a new NBA. The NBA was back.
And here's Doncic driving, puts it up, instead it's a lob.
Luka made the other trades really seem like nothing. When star point guard De'Aaron Fox was traded from the Sacramento Kings to the San Antonio Spurs, building a scary duo with Victor Wembanyama, it felt anticlimactic. When Zach LaVine, 24 points per game, dunk contest winner, or did he win? I already forgot, was sent to Sacramento in the same deal. It was met with yawns. Even when Kevin Durant surprisingly found his name in trade talks as the Suns catered to a 26-28 record, Luka's deal seemed to overshadow the future Hall of Famer too. But there was one deal that would again shift the landscape of the entire 2025 season. No, not this one. No, it wasn't the Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin deal either. Even though Nico Harrison got absolutely robbed from Daryl Morey, I'm talking about Jimmy Butler again. For weeks, Jimmy has been rumored to go to Phoenix, a cure to their Bradley Beal problem, who never lived up to the horrendous 5-year, $250 million contract with a no-trade clause. But if it was going to happen, it was probably going to need a multi-team trade, maybe even with Kevin Durant in the deal, maybe. But Jimmy seemed pretty sure on joining the Suns. And then, as the day was ending, the Warriors swooped in. By this point, the Warriors had been reeling. Sure, Steph was Steph, averaging 22 points per game, and he was still carrying the heck out of defenses and hitting shots like this. But not even Steph could carry a team that was this mid, especially not at 36. I'm not even sure if prime LeBron could. Even though I'm a fan of Kuminga's athleticism and scoring, Steve Kerr just didn't trust him, and when Kuminga did play, he struggled to fit in the Warriors system. Pods didn't end up taking another big step forward, and Buddy Hield, well, let me tell you, he didn't evolve into the next Splash Bro. And just so you know, if it's not a catch and shoot three, Buddy isn't making the shot. The Warriors needed another scoring punch and star to help Steph. They kicked around the idea of KD, but he said he didn't want to leave Phoenix. They looked at Lauri Markkanen, but ultimately, they landed on Jimmy. Let's keep it a buck though, the trade wasn't 100% a win. There were plenty of questions about how Jimmy would fit with Draymond, would he buy into the system, would his lack of shooting clog the lane for a team already lacking shooting? Did he still have that it factor? And most of all, was it enough? Was it enough to push the Warriors to one more championship? I was hoping they would be a great team, but I had to be realistic. They have little chemistry, Draymond and Steph are only getting older, and the Warriors wouldn't change their system to fit their best young player, which left us relying on a 32-year-old Buddy Hield and a 22-year-old Pods. While I'm not hating on these players by any means, I think at that point it was just unrealistic to think that this was a championship team. But there's one thing for sure. Once again, the NBA won. The league watched one of the biggest and brightest stars, Steph Curry, return to relevance. It gave the league a life raft, at least for a few months. These trades and the immense interest that followed felt like a band-aid from the real problem, finding a new heartbeat for the NBA. Maybe though, the identity was forming, not in the form of a player or a team, but in one word: parity. I've already talked about it a little bit, but I may talk about it some more later and really go over where the NBA is going and what this quote-unquote identity crisis means. But I don't want to slow down the video too much, and just make sure you keep watching to the end to hear my full thoughts on the state of the NBA. We have a lot of ball to get to first. Because when the All-Star break came up, I'm going to be honest, there were many teams that I could see winning. The Cavs, the Thunder, even the Celtics were cruising. The Pistons and Rockets were surging. Even the Grizzlies, remember them? They looked like a playoff contender. The Knicks, supported by one of the best offenses in the league, could also be a title contender if they focus more on defense and if Coach Tibbs rested a few guys. If I had to pick, I would still go with the Celtics. They were the defending champs and looked just as lethal as they did the previous year. On the flip side, some teams just couldn't get it together. Take the Sixers. Joel Embiid had finally returned, but the controversy still wouldn't disappear. At one point after their 2-12 start, the normally soft-spoken Maxey called out Embiid for being late for, well, everything in a meeting. But on the court, Embiid's body was clearly compromised. He could still drop 30 on any given night, but he just didn't move the same. The knee was clearly injured. More and more, he traded dunks for layups. Blocks turned into buckets. Every time he fell, he seemed like he may not get back up. On February 9th against the Milwaukee Bucks, he even acknowledged that he would likely need surgery again, sparking questions about why he was even playing in the first place. Plus, the team wasn't winning. Despite their big three playing together, they were 20-34 at the All-Star break, and they had to decide a path quickly. Their 2025 pick was top 6 protected, and that meant if the Sixers finished outside of the bottom 6 teams, their selection would go to the Thunder. So the Sixers had two choices: try to make the playoffs, or try to lose every game to retain that pick. No middle ground. Also, at this point, I was the biggest Mavericks hater. I did not want them to win any games and wanted them to miss the playoffs altogether. And one team that I haven't mentioned too much is the Hawks. At this point during the All-Star break, they low-key looked like a sneaky first-round team. I mean, losing Jalen Johnson was a big blow, but Onyeka was a multifaceted scorer. Risa Shea was finally finding his way, slowly but surely. For some reason, everyone kept thinking that they were going to blow up the Hawks during the season, but if you watch them closely, you'd notice that this team is one of the best teams built around Trae Young yet. The offense went through him smoothly, or as smooth as it's gonna get. Jalen Johnson, when he was healthy, looked like a blossoming all-star. Dyson Daniels was a two-way killer. Niang fit right in as a three-point shooter. LeVert was a versatile scoring punch, and Mann was a good wing defender. Now, I'm not saying that the Hawks were a contender, but in the first round, it could be interesting, especially if we got Ice Trae. And I guess it's time to already start talking about awards, because this was one of the tightest MVP races that I can remember. Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Up until this point, Jokic, a 3-time MVP, had compiled the best season of his Hall of Fame career. I really don't think it requires much analysis, but here I go. Just look at his counting stats by the All-Star break. 29.8 points, 12.6 rebounds, 10.2 assists, and 1.8 steals. Oh yeah, and he did that all while being 6'11" at 280 pounds, and maybe being one of the slowest people in the league. Plus, he was putting up these numbers with no all-stars around him. The Nuggets didn't have great shooters around him. I mean, Jamal Murray, the team's secondary scoring option, went on hot and cold streaks all season so far. And the bench was, I guess you could say they had a deep bench. I mean, you got like 100-year-old DeAndre Jordan still getting minutes. And to add, with the deep bench that they did have, Mike Malone chose not to play most of them because they were younger players. So, Jokic carrying this bum squad might have been an easy pick, right?
Not so fast, Joe. Not so fast.
On the other side, though, we had SGA. Shai was the best scorer in the NBA, putting up 32.5 points per game on 52% shooting by the season's midpoint. He dropped more than 20 points in all but one game. He had 50 points 3 times before the All-Star break, and he did it while leading the young Oklahoma City Thunder to a historic first-half record, 44-10. And coming out of the All-Star break, I was still sold that the Celtics were going to win the championship. For the Western Conference, I do have to say I was bandwagoning, and I thought that Luka and LeBron could do something crazy going into the postseason. But speaking of that, how did that Luka trade turn out? Well, Luka had been sidelined because of a nagging calf injury, and finally made his Lakers debut on February 10th. And let me tell you, I was at the gym during his first game, and I've never seen that many people stop their workouts to watch the game.
Luka Doncic.
At the beginning, I'm gonna be honest, the team kind of looked clunky. Luka seemed very unsure of himself, unsure of how he fit, and confused why he was in a Lakers uniform playing alongside LeBron. He also seemed a little slow when playing, which was probably due to that nagging injury that he had. Those concerns for how the fit would work between him and LeBron continued to linger on for me, but they minimized as the season progressed. And game after game, the Lakers rounded into form. The team made no sense because, well, they'd never planned to be gifted Luka. They had no starting level center, and no offense to Jackson Hayes, and they had a short bench, and at one point, even Bronny James played real minutes, only to get cooked by Tyrese Maxey. But with LeBron and Luka, anything can happen. After the All-Star break, they quickly erupted on an 8-game win streak. While fun to watch and to see Luka and LeBron figure out each other in real time, Luka still making these crazy passes, and LeBron still turning back the hands of time on every fast break. Everything else looked The Lakers had an amazing top-end talent with LeBron and Luka and Austin Reeves, but everywhere else, well, capable NBA players were not great fits in terms of a championship contending team. Meanwhile, Mavs fans were having a lot of fun as well. And in Golden State, after all of the concern, Jimmy fit seamlessly, like from day one. He took a major burden off of Steph as a playmaker and play finisher, a role that not many other people on the roster could replicate. Despite an iffy jump shot going into it, Jimmy opened up the floor in new ways for the Warriors. He put pressure on opposing defenses at the basket, a much needed skill for a three-point happy team. He was an unbelievable cutter and a high IQ passer, both of which created space for Steph even without elite shooting. And he infused energy into the team, giving them hope that maybe, just maybe, they could make a run again. It's no surprise that after the Jimmy deal, Steph averaged 27.3 points per game, shooting 47.3% from the field and 40.8% from three. In turn, the Warriors went on a 23-8 run, looking like one of the top teams in the NBA. But to me, the most interesting squad going down the stretch is someone we haven't talked about in this video yet, the Los Angeles Clippers. To be fair, I haven't talked about them much, maybe if not all of this video. But man, was this a team that I was watching this year. But I'd be lying if I said there weren't question marks about this team. Without Paul George, they lacked the star power that they truly needed to make a run. And that's mainly because Kawhi sat out the first 34 games with issues with his right knee. And yet, this group still figured out how to hold it together. Harden turned back the clock, earning an all-star bid, and said this:
"I'm not a system player, I am a system."
Zubats blossomed into one of the best two-way bigs in the league with an old-school hook shot that never seemed to miss. And Norman Powell, well, man, this season he was a certified hooper. Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn, shout out Chris Dunn, really had the clamps this year, and they just kind of patched it together. It was a cute story, but not a championship story. But then on January 4th, the Claw made his return. Truth be told, I had zero expectations for Kawhi. It's been a while since he's been healthy, and I was wondering if his knees were shot at this point. At first, he looked a bit hampered too, and kind of tentative. He was hitting shots, but not at the same volume or what it looked like confidence. In other words, he wasn't dominating. He averaged only 16.6 points in his first 10 games back. And then slowly, but game by game, it started to return. The Kawhi we knew, the killer mid-range, intercepting passes for a transition play, the quiet destruction.
Reverse layup, it's good. What a play by Kawhi Leonard.
During March, he was averaging 25.2 points on 52.1% from the field, in line with his numbers in his prime years with the Spurs. And the Clippers, well, they were 35-29 by March 9th. I really believed in him. They had a legit superstar at that point in Kawhi, a strong number 2 in Harden, and some long defensive wing options and secondary scorers off the bench. And even late season, they got Ben Simmons. And, some people don't like Ben Simmons, but I was secretly hoping that he would average like a low point triple-double. Long story short, this team looked like a title contender. That's if everyone stayed healthy, and that's a big if. Oh yeah, let's also mention if James Harden doesn't just melt down in the playoffs, but yeah. To add on to that, there was another if they could even make the playoffs. Because the West this year, man. Here's a look at the standings on March 15th, just a few weeks before the end of the season. Obviously, the Thunder were way ahead. But look how close the rest of the conference was. Denver was 43-25 at the 2nd seed. The Clippers were 37-30 at the 8th seed. In other words, the Clippers could theoretically rise to the 2 seed. Alright, let's move on to the next part of the video, where I'm going to go over the title contenders, or at least who I think the title contenders were. Here, I'm going to tell you why each of these teams could have won at this time. Let's start with the Thunder, the best team, not even close. The Nuggets had the best individual player in the league, and then there was everybody else. Then we have the Houston Rockets, young, energy-filled, straight dogs with one of the top rising stars in Amen Thompson, who averaged 18.7 points, 10.6 rebounds, and 4.3 assists in January when he became a full-time starter. The Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, you got me there. I don't know why they're on this list. The Lakers, they had Luka and LeBron. Enough said. The Warriors, they had Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond. I almost want to say enough said on this team too, but kind of weak. Minnesota Timberwolves, they have Anthony Edwards and like the tallest team in the NBA. Plus, they made the conference finals last year. The LA Clippers, maybe the best all-around team outside of the Thunder. The New York Knicks. If something terrible happens to the Celtics, then maybe Cleveland Cavaliers, front runners, and everybody knew it. Sacramento Kings, they got no Kings in this one. The Boston Celtics. Well, they won last year, and they were still looking pretty good this year. The Milwaukee Bucks. If Giannis and Dame can stay healthy, that's one heck of a team to go against. The Indiana Pacers. I'd be lying if I thought they were contenders coming out of the East. So, yeah, you guys got me there. At this point, I think I have to give my first credits to the front office because they put together one heck of a team. So, I think you kind of get my point. The West was loaded. In the East, not so much. Obviously, the Cavs and Celtics looked like title threats, but that was really it. The Knicks were good, I just didn't think they had enough depth and defense to win it all. After that, Pacers no, Pistons no, Magic nah. As you would guess, the Western Conference went down to the wire. Teams traded places nearly every day. And it was coming down to the final games of the seasons to know what the playoff standings were going to be. But that wasn't the real end of season fireworks. Those fireworks came 9 games before the playoffs.
The Grizzlies announced that they have parted ways with head coach Taylor Jenkins.
For many, Taylor Jenkins' firing was a surprise. A big shock to the casual fans. Jenkins had won 250 games and lost 214 games in the past 6 years. He led the Grizzlies to a 2 seed twice, despite being one of the youngest teams in the NBA. It wasn't like the Grizzlies were bad this year either. Far from it. They were 44-29 and tied for the 4th seed. Just a few weeks prior, as recently as February 27th, the Grizzlies had sat at yet the 2 seed again. But tension had been brewing underneath the surface. And like Wayne Gretzky, he was skating on thin ice. Before the season, the front office had fired his entire staff. They replaced them with new assistants, who overrode him and implemented a more free-flowing offense with lots of European-style cutting and movement. During the first half of the season, they ran the least ball screens in the NBA, deliberately avoiding the league's favorite action for a more democratic offense that thrived on randomness. For Jaren Jackson, the system paid dividends, as he soared to his second All-Star game selection and averaged over 20 points. But it seemed like Ja kind of regressed, struggling to find his place in the offense, an offense supposed to be designed around him. Now I will add in a little disclaimer and say that Ja was kind of in and out of the lineup through injuries this year, but still. The Grizzlies seemed in free fall after the All-Star break. They had gone 18-14. Since early February, they had lost 11 straight games against teams with a winning record. They had noticeable outbursts on the bench between players. And Jenkins had, quote-unquote, lost the locker room, the front office thought according to ESPN. Fine, you want to fire your coach? Be my guest. It wasn't the first playoff caliber team to axe their coach. The Kings let go of Mike Brown in late December, just 2 seasons after ending the franchise's 16-year playoff drought. But this one was interesting. I was surprised to see the Grizzlies punt on the season so soon, so close to the playoffs when they had a chance to win a series. Emphasis on chance. But as the NBA does, the shock didn't last long, because a week and a half later, an even better team fired their coach, the Denver Nuggets.
Breaking news here on SportsCenter, the Denver Nuggets have fired head coach Michael Malone.
This was even more shocking to me than Jenkins' dismissal. Did you forget the Nuggets won a title 2 years ago? And Michael Malone was a huge part of that.
Hey, we running this shit back. We running this shit back. Oh yeah, come on, get live.
Malone had been Jokic's coach, his only coach ever in the NBA. He was the winningest coach in the Nuggets history. Would you really fire him? Just 3. Only 3 games before the playoffs. How would that help you win a championship this year? And let me tell you something, championship windows are finite. If you have the best player in the world, in the prime of his career, the win now time isn't next year or the year after, it's this year, right now. And changing coaches is not going to help that. However, there were legit reasons why the Nuggets made their decision. For starters, he had a long-standing beef with general manager Calvin Booth, who was also fired at the same time. According to reports, Malone wanted to play the veterans that had captured a championship 2 years ago, but Booth had slowly stripped the team of those guys. Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, KCP. Instead, he forced Malone's hand by prioritizing cheaper, younger players like Julian Strawther, Zeke Naji, and Jalen Pickett. The Malone and Booth tension was described as a Cold War, according to reports. The team was divided. You were either a Booth guy or a Malone guy. But let me have NBA analyst and reporter Zach Lowe tell you about it.
Well, this guy has been pigeonholed as a Calvin guy, and some people are wary of him, and this guy has been pigeonholed as a Malone guy, and some people are wary of him. But it's hard to function in that kind of atmosphere.
In the meantime, it seems Malone had lost the locker room. Although the Nuggets had patched their season together, they were far from dominant. They were 47-32 with half a bench, propped up solely by Jokic's greatness.
Clock ticks, gotta put one up. Jokic for the win! Oh!
So yes, chaos. 2 of the top teams of the Western Conference would now head into the playoffs with interim head coaches who would never, ever coach the game in the NBA. This was crazy, especially because this would be one of the most competitive playoff series we would ever see. Legit, look at the Western Conference standings heading into the final day. Look at all of these different scenarios. And let me explain how to read this. In the first 4 columns on the left, you have all the games that are left to be played. In each row, one team is highlighted for the game, so that's the winner. So for the first row, if Houston wins the game, Memphis wins their game, Minnesota wins their game, and Golden State wins their game, then the seedings will look like what's on the right. So Minnesota would be the 4th, LA Clippers 5th, Golden State 6th, Denver 7th, and Memphis 8th. But if you go to the second row, if Houston wins, Memphis wins, Minnesota wins, and the Clippers win, then that completely changes up the seeding. On the right, then that would mean the Clippers are the 4th seed, Minnesota 5, Denver 6, Golden State 7, and Memphis 8. And as we just keep going down this list, you see all the different seedings that it could have been. So, the final day of the NBA regular season had some really good basketball. Most notably, the best game of the regular season, Clippers vs. Warriors. Winner gets in the playoffs. Loser goes to the play-ins. This was extremely important because both teams had older players and desperately needed the extra rest by avoiding the play-in. And the stars, let me tell you, they showed out. James Harden, yes, the professional folder James Harden, dropped 39 points and 10 assists. Kawhi had 33. Steph exploded for 36 points, and even play-in Jimmy joined the party with 30 points and 9 assists.
A pickup by the Clippers at the deadline from Atlanta. Let Butler go right by him.
The game swung back and forth. Literally, there were 23 lead changes.
Force him to give it up to Dunn. Lob. Zubac with the throwdown to tie the game.
And after Kawhi missed a potential game winner, they would head to overtime, where a surprise suspect completely took over the game.
Now comes to help. 3 from Harden. Good again. Back-to-back triples by
James Harden would score 12 points in overtime, more than the entire Warriors team, and leading the Clippers to victory.
The regular season is over. The Los Angeles Clippers clinch a playoff spot.
After that game, the playoffs were set. But before we get to the playoffs, we need to recap the regular season. What a crazy year. And I'm going to give you my award picks and reasons why. And you know what? That doesn't even cover everybody. I still need to do some shout outs, especially for the underappreciated players of the NBA. So I'm going to put on a timer and rock out for like 2 minutes straight, or however long I end up taking, and see how many shout outs that I can get in. Let me know if I'm missing anyone. Here I go. Shout out to Josh Giddey for turning into Baby Johnson at the end of the season. Shout out to James Harden for holding down the Clippers with Kawhi out. Shout out to the Suns for having the biggest collapse of all time. Shout out to LaMelo Ball for tweaking every game. Shout out to Utah for nothing. Shout out to Tamani Kamara for being the best defender that no one knows about. Shout out to Jarrett McCain for being, well, as some may call him, the Zesty Hooper, but as I may call him, the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, they just call me the Zesty Hooper, and it's like, come on.
They do?
Yeah, bro.
He might be zesty, but that 3.
Shout out to Julius Randle for actually playing team basketball this year. Shout out to John Morant for the dunk of the year. And yes, in my books, it counts. Shout out to Isaiah Stewart for being the first NBA player to be a reggae artist.
Big dog.
Also, shout out to Isaiah Stewart for fighting everyone and anyone. The playoffs began on April 15th with the play-in tournament. As we mentioned, the Warriors went 23-8 after adding Jimmy, but it wasn't enough to make up for their lackluster start. After falling to the Clippers, they were relegated to the 7th seed and play-in tournament, set to face the lowly Grizzlies. That would turn out to be a heck of a game that has been forgotten in the craziness of the playoffs. But we got too many games to cover for this playoff, so I'm just gonna cut to the chase. The Warriors won, and Steph is amazing. Honestly, there were other play-in games, but does anyone here want to start wasting time about talking about the Sacramento Kings or the Bulls or the Mavericks? Yeah, I'm good. Don't even get me started on the Eastern Conference play-ins. Okay, now it's time for real basketball. The playoffs? Here's what the bracket looked like. I don't want to skip too far ahead because this evolved into one of the most intense, competitive, and entertaining first rounds that I can remember. So we're gonna go series by series, and at times, game by game. Let's get the bad ones out the way first. Well, the Thunder absolutely blitzed the Grizzlies, dusting them in 4 games and even defeating them by 51 points in game 1. Next game, the Cavs did the same to the Heat, and who should be ashamed of how lifeless they had performed? Honestly, it'd be cool if teams that didn't perform well got relegated to the G League, like how they do in the English Premier League. And then yes, the Pacers made light work of the Bucks. There were fights between Halliburton's dad and Giannis, lots of Giannis buckets, and of course, as we know, the devastating Achilles injury to Dame, and the first Halliburton game winner, with many more to come.
5 seconds, 4 seconds.
Oh yeah, free pops.
Free your dad, brother.
Free pops. Free pops to us backwards, man. Free pops.
But I know where you want to begin. The Lakers. The Luka Lakers, who for the first time in nearly 5 years had a real chance to make a run. To start though, they'd have to play the Timberwolves, one of the NBA's hottest teams who ended the season on a 17-4 run. Still, I was weary of the Wolves. They had the habit of losing discipline when games got tight. And one thing about me, I never bet on Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert in the playoffs. Can you guess Julius Randle's field goal percentages in the playoffs before this series? All right, I'll let you think about it. Okay, 34.4% from the field and 28.3% from three-point. So yeah, here's a look at how ESPN predicted the Lakers vs. Wolves round would go. But the Wolves heard the noise and responded. They overwhelmed the Lakers from start to finish. They bullied the Lakers with their size and never-ending defense length that stifled Luka and LeBron. That to me was the most impressive thing about this series. Even though LeBron and Luka had decent stats, they didn't dominate. It seemed like they'd have to grind for every bucket against the Wolves defenders. After the Lakers averaged 113.4 points per game during the regular season, that number plummeted to 100.4. That was even true when LeBron and Luka targeted Gobert. And we remember what Luka did to Gobert last year. This year was different. Gobert didn't just hold his own, he kinda locked up Luka. Luka scored just 22 points and shot 41.2% with 6 turnovers when Gobert was guarding him across the series, according to NBA.com. As a team, the Lakers shot just 35.8% against Gobert, which is a crazy stat considering that most of his defensive possessions came on easy-to-make two-pointers. While the Wolves had options to throw at the Lakers' best players, including Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Walker-Alexander, and even Anthony Edwards, the Lakers didn't have many counters. This is where the AD trade really came back to haunt them. They had no rim protection, they had no depth. It got so bad that JJ ran out 5 players for an entire second half in Game 4 without a break. I'd never seen anything like this before. And yeah, by Game 5, an elimination game, JJ threw in Maxi Kleber, the former Mavs forward who was part of the Luka trade. But Kleber hadn't appeared in a game in months due to injury and had never even played for the Lakers yet. That's just how desperate JJ was to find any answers. So by the end of the series, the Wolves had eviscerated the Lakers. They made no doubt that they were the best team. They won in 5 games, topped off by a Rudy Gobert offensive game that I never thought in my life I'd ever see. 27 points and 24 rebounds.
Step through, put it up, follow slam! Look out below!
The Wolves exited this series in 5, and Anthony Edwards made sure everyone knew.
What'd they say? Lakers in 5. And then look, when we was up 3-1, they said Lakers in 7. Ain't they say that?
But this wasn't the theme of the playoffs. And by that, I'm talking about the end of the old guard, because on the flip side, the Warriors were taking it to the Rockets. For months, pundits had worried about the Rockets. Sure, they were the 2 seed. Sure, they had rising stars. Sure, they had one of the best coaches in the NBA. But did they have a good enough star? Did they have someone to turn to when times got tough? Wink, wink, Jalen Green. When the game slowed down, when the clock ticked down, would Jalen Green be that guy? Şengün? Fred VanVleet? Dare I say Dylan Brooks? And for that, the concerns arose. In Game 1, the Warriors stars combined for 56 points to beat Houston in a slow, ugly 95-85 victory. In Game 2, Jalen Green came alive, dropping 38 points and getting anywhere he wanted, flying to the rim, slamming dunks, and even hitting these crazy threes. That wouldn't last long though. Green struggled the rest of the series. In Game 3, he scored 9. In Game 4, he scored 8. And by Game 5, he had 11. Gosh, man. But Green wasn't the only one. VanVleet couldn't hit a shot until Game 4. Rising star Men Thompson couldn't find his place. And the Warriors' 2 aging legends turned back the clock, scoring at will, setting the pace and complimenting each other like people who had shared the court for decades. As a result, the Warriors seized a commanding series lead, 3-1. That is, well, until the Rockets found their identity, height and size. The Rockets' trump card? No, it wasn't anyone I've discussed yet. It was Steven Adams. You remember Steven Adams, right? Gigantic New Zealand man who played with the KD Westbrook Thunder teams. Well, let's get you up to date if you forgot about him. Because, well, I don't blame you. Adams had missed the entire previous 2023 through 2004 season after a PCL surgery. When he did play in the 2024 through 2025 season, he only averaged 13.7 minutes and 3.9 points in the regular season. He was a small part of the team, a role player, that is, well, if they needed him. A vet presence to mentor the youth. Suddenly though, that 31-year-old found himself as a major part of the Rockets' game plan.
Swatted out of bounds by Adams, his 3rd block of the game.
Over the final 4 games of the series, he averaged 25 minutes, 6.3 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 1.8 blocks. That doesn't sound like a crazy stat line, but let me break it down. Teamed up with Şengün, Adams bullied the Warriors on the boards, who didn't have a traditional center to use. When Adams played, the Rockets were plus 14.5 per 100 possession, and when he played with Şengün, they were up 21.8 points per 100 possessions, with a, get this, 41.6% offensive rebounding rate, one of the best in the playoffs. That means, for layman's terms, they They rebounded more than 41% of their team's misses. It's crazy. The smaller Warriors couldn't match the size and aggression. It got so bad that they started to hack Adams, sending him to the free throw line where he struggled, hoping to keep him off the floor. The Rockets would win 2 games to force a Game 7 behind their ginormous lineup and Van Vliet's back-to-back 20-point games. And they were making it tough for Steph, blanketing him with Thompson, maybe the best young defender in the NBA, who held him to 40.7% from the field and forced 8 turnovers across the series. But the Warriors would prove to be too much in Game 7, grinding the Rockets' offense to a halt once again, holding them to 40% from the field and making every shot hard. Meanwhile, Buddy Hield decided to hit 9 threes en route to a 33-point game. All in all, the Warriors would end up moving on, holding off the hungry Rockets and keeping the dynasty alive just a bit longer. And believe it or not though, these weren't my 2 favorite series of the first round. Rather, I loved the Pistons and the Knicks. Game 1, Madison Square Garden. The Pistons barely had any vets with playoff experience, and I thought this environment might be too much for them, thinking that Detroit would need time to get settled. But the Pistons were unfazed by the Garden, at least for the first 41 minutes. They hounded the Knicks. Tobias Harris, for some reason, dropped 22 points in the first half, and Tim Hardaway Jr. exploded for 12 in the third. And with 9 minutes left in the fourth, the Pistons led by 8. Brunson had been slowed down by an ankle injury, and the Knicks were on the ropes. And then
Hart, the rebound, back out to Payne. Cameron Payne, a 3. Puts it in!
Yes, that is Cam Payne hitting a 3 in the playoffs. But wait, there's more.
Brunson the crossover, Brunson the drive, flips it up, it's good! And a foul!
And more.
Brunson to Hart, another layup, banks it home!
And then suddenly, the Pistons disappeared. The Knicks went on a 21-0 run, and the Pistons couldn't do anything to swing the momentum. Despite leading for much of the game, the Pistons lost, 123-112. And after a game like that, the Pistons seemed doomed. They had given everything they had. They had the victory in their hands, and yet they folded. How can you come back from that? To start Game 2, the Pistons jumped the Knicks, leading by 6 at halftime and 8 after the third quarter. And then their offense faltered again. In the final minutes, the Knicks dominated with a 16-4 run in a 5-minute span, tying the game at 94 with 1 minute left. But this time, the Pistons got the win, thanks to this huge shot.
Schroeder's jumper, kaboom! It's a 3!
And that place was on fire.
It's Cunningham for 3!
The Knicks would escape with a 118-116 victory, taking a 2-1 lead. Then came the infamous Game 4. The Pistons looked in control again, and at this point I sound like a broken record. Buoyed by a 28-14 third quarter run, they led by 10 points early in the fourth quarter. Jalen Duren was picking up every boards en route to a 17-rebound game. Cade looked like he had things under control, getting to his spots, hitting his pull-ups, making the right plays, but the Knicks chipped away, and then Brunson took over.
30-40 years ago between these teams, Brunson penetrates, has the float game.
Brunson would score 13 points in just a 5-minute stretch, and with 4 minutes left, he had helped the Knicks tie the game after a made 3. That opened the door for Cat to go nuclear, doing this.
Driving on Duren. Fall away. Oh my goodness.
And then this.
Towns. Long 3 from Towns. Oh my!
Still, with 11 seconds left, the Pistons had a chance to win the game. They called timeout, down 1 point. Out of the timeout, they got exactly where they wanted it. In the hands of Cade, their superstar, at home, with a chance to usher in a new era for Detroit basketball.
Cunningham driving, pull-up jumper, no good!
And yes, that is a foul. I mean, if you pause it right here, you can see that Tim Hardaway doesn't even have the space to get up his shot and that there's contact on the right side. However, in the NBA, you gotta sell calls. And at the end of the game, if it doesn't look obvious that there's a foul, technically the refs shouldn't call anything. And if Detroit's mad that they lost the game, then they should have played better earlier and not let it come down to this. After the game, the refs acknowledged that a foul should have been called, but the damage was already done. The New York Knicks had flipped the series. Instead of being tied, New York went up 3-1. Still though, these Pistons would not go away. They won Game 5 in New York as Cade dropped 24, and the other twin, Asar Thompson, finally arrived scoring 22. That meant Game 6 in Detroit, and finally I can say something different. This one was a back and forth affair. The Pistons only led by 2 at halftime. The Knicks went up 11 to start the fourth quarter after Mikal Bridges got hot. And then the Pistons came roaring back again. Jalen Duren feasted. Asar Thompson continued his hot streak, and Brunson on the other end of the court could not buy a bucket if he wanted to. With 2 minutes left, the Pistons pull ahead by 7. Asar did his thing, Tim Hardaway hit a midi, and Game 7 was upon us. But the Knicks didn't budge. After some Jalen Brunson heroics and a Mikal Bridges putback, they came back. The score was tied. 5 seconds left. Knicks ball. A chance to win.
Till the end. Johnson puts up a three. Bang! Bang!
And with that, the Knicks escaped in 6 games. A series that easily could have gone Detroit's way. It left me feeling pretty bad about the Knicks. I mean, they could barely get by the Pistons, an inexperienced team that couldn't really close games yet. I mean, how could they think after barely making it out of this round that they would defeat the defending champion Boston Celtics in the next round? We'll get back to that, but first, let's talk about the best first round series. To me, it was the Clippers versus the Nuggets. Personally thought the Clippers would win the series. They seemed like the opposite of the Nuggets, who were short on depth and options outside of forcing it to Jokic and praying. The Clippers had the James Harden-Zubats pick and roll. They had a dang near all-star Norman Powell. They had big ball lineups and small ball lineups. They had switchable wings and three-point shooters. And they also had something we haven't seen in a while, a healthy Kawhi, who looked more and more prime every time he played. So honestly, I thought before the series, they could really make a run for it. But the Nuggets were tough and gritty. They had identity, an identity that helped them win a championship 2 years ago, and a core that had won big games before. To understand their toughness, all you need to do is watch the Nuggets in Game 1. Jokic played amazing, ended up a rebound shy from a triple-double, but it was a bench player who carried them down the stretch. Someone we're used to seeing get triple-doubles, Russell Westbrook. The Clippers, who had got rid of Westbrook the season before, did what most teams would do. They left Russ wide open, daring him to shoot. As the Nuggets found themselves down 1 with 30 seconds, they got the ball to their best player, Jokic. The Clippers completely sold out to stop him, but Jokic didn't shoot. Instead,
Game 1, 25 seconds. Westbrook a three. You bet!
And in overtime, he would show up again.
Down 3, 10.9 to go in overtime. Harden knocked out of bounds, and it lasts him.
With will and determination, the Nuggets won. Still, the Clippers seem like the favorites. Just look at how many minutes the Nuggets starters played in Game 1. That can't be sustainable. And I don't know if the game plan is to rely on crunch time Russell Westbrook. Game 2 arrived, and it was a very different story. It was another nail-biter. The lead changed hand 18 times. And it was tied 12 times. Yep, there was a difference in this game. The Clippers seemed like they had the best player in the world. Forget Jokic, forget Shea. This was Kawhi's time. He was still around, and man was he hooping.
Turn around. Good.
That's what I think he should be doing more.
Kawhi looked like the vintage Kawhi in this game. He finished with 39 points on 15 from 19 from the field with 2 steals and 5 assists. He got wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted, on whoever he wanted. And when it mattered most, deep into the fourth quarter, he cleared out a side, took the Nuggets' best defender one-on-one, and did this.
Rises up over Gordon and hits another one. Kawhi.
Game time. So yep, there goes the series, 1-1. The Clippers would overwhelm the Nuggets in Game 3, looking like the faster, more talented, and deeper team. Ben, the guy helping me write this video, actually went to Game 3. I asked him what it was like. It was, after all, the first playoff game at the Intuit Dome, the Clippers' new stadium.
That was a completely different stadium, but it felt like a dystopia. It didn't feel like a regular stadium. And then you take the elevator up to your seats, and it's just like this huge glass building, and you can see out of it. And then when you sit down, it's got this huge, as you can see here, like this huge wraparound kind of screen thing. And it just felt like, okay, like there's no way this Nuggets team has like enough people to keep this a series.
Then came Game 4. The Clippers up 2-1 in the series. A must-win game for the Clippers, because if they do, then the series is probably over. But if the Nuggets win, the series is completely up for grabs. And wouldn't you know, it was probably the best game of the playoffs yet. So if you've been skipping through this video, you'll want to pause now and listen. This game was one for the ages. It was a close game all night long, until the third quarter, when Nikola Jokic took over. He completely dominated, scoring 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in the third. The Nuggets would take an 85-65 lead heading into the fourth. They looked primed to knot up the series and send it back to Denver. But then the Clippers came roaring back.
Bogdanovich inside and staking his claim, Kawhi Leonard.
James Harden and Zubats went to work.
Sheds Gordon, goes by Jokic and scoops it home.
Kawhi got to his mid-range.
Here comes Kawhi into Porter, defended by Jokic, finds room.
Norman Powell would hit 3 threes in 4 minutes. And the Clippers scored on 10, yes, 10 straight possessions. And suddenly, the Nuggets' towering lead had been demolished to 1. And then it was gone. With 1 minute and 11 seconds left, Bojan Bogdanovich scored at the rim, putting the Clippers up by 1, who were once down by 22. But it didn't end there. Jokic would hit a beautiful turnaround jumper, and then Zubats made a putback to tie the game at 99. That's when the craziest play of the NBA season ever happened.
Zubats is on him, and this is for the win. Oh, they're going to call it.
Insane. So that was that. Despite the comeback by the Clippers, the Nuggets escaped. The series was tied 2-2. The Clippers never seemed to fully recover. The two teams would split games 5 and 6 before reaching game 7. The first game 7 of the first round. But the Clippers just weren't there. James Harden, who had been so consistent by his playoff standards during the series, fell apart, scoring just 7 points on 8 shots. And the Nuggets evolved into a well-oiled machine. They pounded the offensive glass, shot over 52% from the field, and hounded the Clippers on defense. By halftime, the Nuggets led by 11. By the end of the third, they led by 27. And by the fourth, Kobe Brown and Chris Christie were out there hooping for the Clippers as the Nuggets cruised to a 19-point victory. A real bummer for game 7. I thought if the Clippers could stay healthy, they had a real chance to win it all. I guess playoff experience matters. The Nuggets had the chemistry, championship pedigree, and toughness that the Clippers just didn't have. So that ended the first round for me. And here's a look at how the bracket would shape out for the rest of the teams. And the second round would be even crazier, but it was different from the first, where we had some really close series and all-time playoff moments. The second round didn't feature the same nail-biting games. Instead, I was surprised by which teams won, especially after the first few days. First, the 4-seeded Indiana Pacers overwhelmed the 1-seeded Cavs. The 64-18 Cavs, the title favorite to some Cavs, got game 1 stolen from them by the Pacers. The Pacers were not missing, and the Cavs struggled without Darius Garland, who didn't suit up because of a toe injury. Then, the 3rd-seeded Knicks shocked the defending champs, the 2nd-seed Celtics. They charged back from a 20-point deficit to snatch game 1 in overtime, thanks to Mikal Bridges.
Bridges there, they hold it, they grapple, it's over, the Knicks have won!
And then it happened again. After a hard-fought 7-game series, I thought the Nuggets would have no chance against the 1-seeded Thunder. And then Jokic dropped a 42-point, 22-rebound masterpiece, sending that game down to the wire. The Thunder had a chance to end the game, but Chet would miss 2 free throws. And then Aaron Gordon hit another big shot.
Westbrook, 5 seconds, they're down by 1, Gordon, got it!
And then it happened again, this time between the 7th-seed Warriors and the 6th-seeded Timberwolves. The Warriors jumped out to a 30-20 lead, but then a nightmare situation happened. Just 13 minutes into the game, Steph Curry hit a floater and jogged back on defense, holding his hamstring. He would leave the game and not return, leaving the Warriors already running on fumes after a 7-game series to hold off the surging Timberwolves. And yet, somehow they did. Somehow they did win. They did it with tough-nosed defense, clutch buckets, and Splash Buddy making a revival.
Pours in a 3-pointer. That was a clutch bucket.
Final score, 99-88. Despite losing Curry. Okay, so that was a lot really quick, but what does this all mean? This meant that after the first game of every second round series, each underdog had won. Literally, just take a look. Have you ever seen this happening before? Before the series began, here were the series odds. You'll see that Vegas didn't initially think the game 1 winners had a chance to advance. There was no need to panic though, right? It was just one game, after all. Once Garland came back, the 64-win Cavs would easily stomp the Pacers, right? If the Celtics could just make one more shot and not fall apart on offense, they would kill the one-dimensional Knicks, right? And certainly the Nuggets couldn't maintain all of their minutes and the Warriors couldn't win without Steph, right? Yes, I was quickly proved wrong. In game 2, the Cavs got an all-time Donovan Mitchell game without Evan Mobley, DeAndre Hunter, or Garland due to injury. It was Mitchell who willed them. He dropped 48 points on 15 from 30 from the field, hitting this and this and this. However, it wasn't enough to slow down the balanced, never-ending, relentlessly fast attack of the Pacers, who escaped in game 2, thanks to maybe, well, the biggest shot of the playoffs, at least up until this point. That meant the Pacers led the series 2-0. And then the Celtics-Knicks. Game 2. It was like a disgusting replay at Game 1. Once again, the Celtics took a 12-point lead headed into the 4th. And once again, the Knicks came back. And then once again, the Celtics offense fell to pieces. They went 2 of 11 from long range in the 4th as the Knicks stormed back, stealing yet another game. So yeah, the second round was in complete disarray. The Pacers led 2-0. The Knicks led 2-0. And both teams were headed back to home court. It's just unbelievable. On the Western side, the Timberwolves wouldn't let the Warriors do the same. By game 2, I had seen enough. Even though the series was tied 1-1, Steph was diagnosed with a hamstring strain, and he would miss at least 1 week. So it was pretty safe to say that the Warriors were cooked, especially since Jimmy Butler was coming back from an injury as well. To me, I thought there was a lot at stake in the second round, like more than usual. If the Celtics Celtics at full strength lost to an offense-only, no-defense Knicks team, they might just have to break up that team. If the Warriors lost, it would trigger questions about whether the Jimmy trade actually worked and whether this was a true championship team. And if the Cavs somehow lost to the Pacers, would they need to rebuild after multiple years of disappointing exits? Both the Celtics and Cavs responded in Game 3, winning convincingly to set up momentual Game 4s. Then, both teams saw their worlds collapse. Let's start with the Cavs. So, they got back all of their stars, fully healthy and ready to compete in the biggest game of this Cavs era, as they trailed 2-1. You would guess that they came out hungry and ready to fight to make sure that they get this game, right? That's not what happened. The Cavs fell apart in Game 4. By the end of the first quarter, the Cavs were down 38-23. By halftime, they trailed 80-39. Donovan Mitchell left the game with an ankle injury. Miles Turner was looking like the big man version of Steph Curry, and the Pacers cruised to a 129-109 victory. It was one of the most embarrassing performances that we've seen by then. And now, the Pacers led 3-1. The Celtics, on the other hand, were trailing by 7 points with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That's when Jason Tatum ran for a normal loose ball and never returned.
And Tatum is hurt. Tatum is down. 42 points for Tatum tonight, but right now in a great deal of pain.
Speedy recovery to Jason, but I think we knew that the Celtics were cooked once this happened. The next day, we learned that our worst nightmare had come true.
Jason Tatum has suffered a ruptured right Achilles tendon.
So yeah, 2 second-round series had collapsed right before our eyes. The injuries for the Cavs and Celtics raised questions in the media about the length of the NBA season. Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons really emphasized this point, and it got me thinking too. If the season was less than 82 games, would it lead to decreased injuries, especially given the physicality of the playoffs? This question I don't have a great answer for, but I don't think less games is the answer. I think it more has to do with how the game is played today. I mean, we are living in one of the fastest eras of the NBA. All that running up and down the court can put a lot more of wear and tear on players compared to other eras. Also, with more players playing in AAU from a young age, that definitely can't be helping on their body later in life. But who knows? There's probably a lot more research that I need to do on this, but all I do know is that without Tatum, the Celtics would go down in 6 games. Despite the legendary Luke Cornett performance where he had 7 blocks, the Warriors would fall in 5, unable to muster one without Steph. And the Pacers' all-around attack wore down the Cavs. They would win in 5 games, meaning the top 2 seeds in the East had lost. That left only 1 second-round series remaining, the Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. A series that I thought would be over pretty quick, but the Nuggets were tough, like really tough. We've been over this with the Clippers. They became one of my favorite teams of the playoffs because realistically, outside of their starting core, it really didn't make sense how they made it this far. I mean, MPJ was on one shoulder, Aaron Gordon was playing through hamstring soreness, Jamal Murray was still trying to find his groove, and then outside of Russ, they didn't really have a bench. But as the Nuggets did, they held on, and they did it with grit. They did it with poise down the stretch of big games. And they did it by running a weird zone that screwed with the Thunder's offense. They did it with the best player of our generation, despite the Thunder packing the lane like an NFL defense trying to stop the run. The Nuggets would somehow, some way, force a Game 7 against the Thunder. Unfortunately, Game 7 turned out to be a coming out party for the Thunder. Finally, they looked like the team we had seen all regular season, swarming the Nuggets, tricking them into turnovers, and locking up Jokic with Alex Caruso. And finally, they got a good game from their third-year rising star Jalen Williams, who put up 24 points. And despite the scare, the Thunder advanced, winning Game 7 comfortably, 125-93. Afterwards, Jokic seemed exhausted after dealing with the buzzsaw that is the Oklahoma City Thunder.
But from now, like next couple of days, there's going to be a lot of beer probably.
I don't know if this is relief or depression or even excitement to get back to his horses in Serbia. I don't know how to read this man sometimes. With that game, the conference finals were set. The Timberwolves versus the Thunder and the Knicks versus the Pacers. That's a crazy sentence that I just said and one that I would never have predicted, underscoring this newfound parody of the NBA. I'm gonna get through the Timberwolves-Thunder series quickly for 2 reasons. A, the Thunder showed why they were the best team all season, and B, the Knicks versus Pacers game had, let's say, some fireworks to it. But yeah, so the T-Wolves versus the Thunder. Honestly, when I return to this series, I just think about the Thunder's pure and utter domination from start to finish. It never seemed like the Timberwolves even had a chance to win. After Game 7 against the Nuggets, the Thunder had been unleashed. And to me, that was the story. They looked like a varsity team beating up on a JV squad to no avail. The Thunder would swarm Ant. They had multiple defenders who could slow him down. Caruso, Lou Dort, J-Dub, Kaysen Wallace. And even when he got by one of those guys, they would slap the ball, force turnovers, or clog the paint to stop him. Even Ant was impressed.
15 couplets on one string.
They had a plan, they executed it.
Ant would go on to average 23 points across the series, and in 2 separate games, he took just 13 shots, tied for his lowest in a single game all playoffs. By the end, he looked just done, defeated, but somehow still motivated.
They was the better team. They came out and beat us, punched us in the face, and we lost the game. We lost the series. Nobody's gonna work harder than me this summer, I tell you that much.
Outside of a hot shooting night in Game 3, the Thunder stormed past the Wolves, winning in 5 games. But on the other side, well, that series was amazing. On one end, you had the Knicks, who had reached the conference finals for the first time in 25 years. The excitement soared throughout the city, and their celebrity row was looking like the Met Gala. And the series opened up with one of the most exciting games of the playoffs. Or I should say, exciting endings. That's because the Knicks led for most of the game, taking a 14-point lead with less than 3 minutes left. I specifically remember watching this with my friend, and when the Knicks hit another bucket, I was like, yeah, this game is over. I mean, come on. They were ahead by 9 points with 58 seconds left.
He'll make a move, fly inside, and a big basket for Brunson.
But then Naismith hit a 3, and then he hit another one. You know what? Screw it. Why not one more? And then he gets the foul shots. With the game on the line, could Haliburton end it?
He'll backpedal a 3 for the win, and
By this point, I think it's set in for me. This wasn't another fluke run to the conference finals for the Pacers. This was the real deal. This team was, dare I say, good, and maybe, just maybe, championship good. For starters, they had the playoffs' best clutch scorer in Tyrese Haliburton. They were unafraid of big moments, and they believed with delusion that they always had a chance to win, regardless of the score. Most of all, they played a style of basketball that caught teams off guard with a blazing fast offense that thrived on chaos. It was the exact opposite of the Knicks, who were the poster child of the modern NBA, centered on the pick and roll, isolation, and heliocentric offense engineered by Brunson. The Pacers played democratically, with many offensive actions to lean on, from Haliburton driving kicks to Siakam bump fades, to Turner pick and pops, to Naismith off-ball movement, to TJ McConnell wildness, to Benedict Mathurin, I'm the best player on the floor bucket getting. They possessed a selflessness that only really compared to the prime Spurs and Warriors in my opinion. And last but not least, we need to put respect on Andrew Nembhard. This player can ball. And I don't mean like he can kind of ball. I'm saying like he might have one of the deepest bags in the NBA. The stats back the Pacers run too. After a 10-win, 15-loss start to the regular season, they had ended it on a 40-17 run, genuinely looking like one of the best teams in the NBA and prompting questions whether Haliburton should be considered a top 10 superstar.
He's potentially a superstar.
Well, I mean, probably take the potential off.
Well, there's debate.
Not everybody.
There's a lot of debate.
Okay, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves because the Knicks and Pacers still had a whole series to finish. But in some ways, that game 1 would define the series. The Knicks never seemed to recover. The Pacers won game 2 in the Garden thanks to a 39-point outburst by Pascal Siakam. The Knicks won a must-have game 3 after a 24-point, 15-rebound game by Cat. Back on their home floor, the Pacers took game 4 to pull ahead with a 3-1 lead, this time backed by a 32 and 30-point performance from Hallie and Siakam. Then in game 5, Tom Thibodeau actually did something that I never thought he would do. He benched Josh Hart, then inserted Mitchell Robinson into the starting lineup, who had emerged as one of the most valuable Knick players, being relentless on the offensive glass. Tibbs, I know, stay with me now, also used his bench. And surprisingly, the Knicks got valuable minutes from DeLon Wright and Landry Shamet, who brought endless energy and hounding defense. But even with all that, either it was too late or it wasn't enough. The Pacers would win Game 6 by 17 points, eliminating the Knicks and ending their greatest postseason run in more than 2 decades. In some ways, it brought great pride to the franchise, a franchise that has been stuck in mediocrity and disappointment. It was an amazing run, a run that energized the entire city, but it was also a major failure. This team should have beaten the Indiana Pacers. They were almost built to win a championship. They had the best player in the series, and yet they didn't reach that goal, which would lead them to making a surprising decision just days after the historic finish for them.
Tom Thibodeau has been relieved of his duties as head coach of the New York Knicks, sources tell me, after 5 seasons as head coach of the Knicks.
Whether they made the right move or not, we'll know next season. But let's move on to the climax of this video, the NBA championship between the Oklahoma City and the Indiana Pacers. Maybe the most random championship matchup of all time. But don't let the small markets fool you. This wasn't projected to be a close series. Many analysts actually picked the Thunder to win in 5 or 6 games. Matter of fact, the betting odds had the Thunder listed as a -800 favorites, and the Pacers as a +550 underdogs, according to BetMGM. It was one of the most lopsided series lines in the last 25 years, similar to the Lakers vs Sixers in 01, Pistons vs Lakers in 04, and the Cavs vs Warriors in 18. Well, game 1 started how many expected it to start. The Thunder dominated. They literally forced 19 turnovers in the first half. And they did it for most of the night, pressuring the Pacers. But the Pacers were sticking around, like 8 points, 10 points, 12 points. They weren't winning, but they were within striking distance the whole time. And then with about 8 minutes left, it happened. Slowly this time though. Miles Turner hit a few threes, including a bank. Naismith had a corner three. Nembhard had a crazy step back where he absolutely cooked Shea. And somehow, that Thunder lead had evaporated. And almost as quickly as it evaporated, the game ended.
With a chance to win it. Final seconds, no fouls to give. Halliburton looking. Halliburton driving, pulls up, jump shot. It's good! It's good! With 0.3 of a second remaining. Timeout, OKC. Tyrese Halliburton does it again.
Maybe, just maybe, the Pacers had more magic left, but the Thunder erased any question marks in Game 2. They took the lead and never gave it back, winning 123-107. SGA looked like the MVP that he is, dropping 34 easy ones, hitting pull-up middies, getting around the paint to where he wanted to be, and Halliburton, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found for much of the game, unable to escape the Thunder's jail of defenders. There was another storyline emerging at this time too, the ratings discussion, again and back with vengeance. Game 1 and 2 were the least watched finals games in years. Game 2, for example, was the lowest since the bubble, and if you took away the bubble, it was the lowest since 2007 for the Spurs-Cavs finals. It's easy to point out why, quote-unquote, two small market teams, two teams without big names or stars, and two styles of play, predicated on defense and passing, that didn't fit with the modern NBA. But it kept me wondering, did it matter? Did the ratings falling really matter? I'm gonna get more into this at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. The Thunder had led for pretty much all of Game 1 and 2. Outside of the Tyrese heroics and 3 minutes of good basketball, the Thunder were looking pretty good. Their defense was suffocating and swarming every time the Pacers passed it, but this Pacers team just shakes head. I can't say enough good things about them. They were so tough, relentless, they feared no one. And there's no better example than Game 3, when they were trailing by 5 points to start the fourth quarter. But like I said, I don't think they ever looked at the scoreboard. They were just playing their style of game. They clamped up Shea, Nembhard got to a step back, Obi Toppin had this crazy dunk, and slowly they pulled away, winning the fourth quarter by 14 points en route to a 116-107 victory. And then suddenly, the Pacers led the series 2-1 against one of the best teams we've ever seen this season. And then somehow in Game 4, they did it again. They were winning. Again. Halliburton was aggressive, getting downhill and attacking the rim. Obi Toppin had double digits off the bench. Pascal Siakam had 5 steals. Pacers were ahead for most of the game, and at the start of the fourth, they led by 7 points. The win was in their reach. They were just 12 minutes away from a 3-1 lead. That NBA ring might be coming to Indiana for the first time. Maybe the greatest run we've seen by an underdog team in the NBA.
SGA crowds him. Siakam down the lane, kicks it out inside for Toppin.
However, it was time for Shea to show just why he was the MVP. First, he made Nembhard look silly with a bump-hezzy layup. He hit a gigantic 3 to cut the Pacers' 4-point lead to 1. And before we knew it, he was hitting the biggest shot of his young career. Maybe the most important shot of the playoffs.
Alexander on the drive, pulls back. Baseline jumper's good. OKC with their first lead of the second half.
With that shot, the Thunder stole the lead and never looked back, winning 111-104. I don't know, man. That might be the series right there. That was the one that the Pacers had to get. If they had won, they would have led 3-1. It would be hard to blow a margin that large, but after this loss, the series was now knotted at 2-2, headed back to OKC in just a few minutes. The momentum had shifted back towards the Thunder, and that would carry over to Game 5, with the Thunder winning 120-109. 20 years later, they'll be calling this one the Jalen Williams game.
Hartenstein, beautiful bounce pass to Williams.
J-Dub would drop 40 points, looking like some of the greatest to ever do it in the finals. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch the Thunder's game every night during the regular season, but I did leave the playoffs with a newfound respect for J-Dub. He's fast, he's creative, and he's very hard to contain. Is it just me, or does he remind me of like a bigger version of Tyrese Maxey, with his ability to get ahead of steam and blow by downhill, finishing with the flip shots, floaters, dunks, and crazy contortions. So yeah, the series was 3-2 in favor of the Thunder. Good night, Indy. It was a good run, but their luck had finally run out. Not only were they trailing, but Tyrese had injured his calf, and analysts wondered whether he could play in Game 6. And if he did, they questioned how effective he'd be, but he didn't plan to sit.
If I can, walk, then I want to play, so...
And then, despite his injury, they did it again. They won Game 6, blitzing the Thunder 108-91, carried by 6 Pacers dropping double-digit points. I shouldn't have been surprised because they did this the entire series. And even though a while ago I said the Thunder had it, now I'm back on the Pacers bandwagon. I'm going back to the tough, fast, and well-coached team that shouldn't have made it this far, but they did. Because every time, when it came to the clutch, They were the most resilient group on the floor. Anyways, as I'm going back and forth on the series, Game 7 came up. The first Game 7 since the Cavs and Warriors in 2016. So since I'm back being a Pacers bandwagon, I was thinking that somehow, some way, they were going to win this game. But before we got there, something crazy happened. You remember how Kevin Durant was beefing with Phoenix after they nearly traded him earlier this season? Well, he and the Suns both had enough. They had been shopping him for months, and it was the worst kept secret in the NBA. And then, on the day of the NBA Finals, he was traded to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and the number 10 pick. A great pickup for Houston. And at this point for the Suns, I have no idea what they're planning to do. And there was actually another trade that happened a few days before that was pretty important. Desmond Bane, the homegrown Memphis star, was traded to the Orlando Magic for 4 first-round picks in a swap. Bane fit perfectly as a shooter who could spread the floor for the offensively challenged Magic. But man, it was a lot to give up. 4 firsts and a pick swap? It reminded me of the Rudy Gobert trade. A trade that still seems like an overpay, but still helped the team dramatically on defense. Anyways, enough of trade talk. It's Game 7 time. The Pacers came out super hot. Despite hobbling an injured calf, Tyrese Haliburton looked re-energized. He was hitting 3 after 3 after 3 and letting everyone know about it. And then, with nearly 5 minutes on the clock and the score tied at 16, Obi Toppin swung the ball. Haliburton caught it, then
Haliburton falls down. He looks hurt. Haliburton's hurt right away when he fell. Oh, you get in a situation like this, you're just sick to your stomach for the young man.
We all knew that this was the end. Minutes later, Haliburton was helped off the floor, a towel over his head as he limped through the tunnel, and out of Game 7. An Achilles injury, the death sentence for NBA players. After that, to be honest, the game was a blur. The Pacers stuck around, Siakam got to his, Nembhard hit a couple, and TJ McConnell was still doing his thing, trying to do whatever he could to keep the Pacers in, but it wasn't enough. At halftime, somehow, the undermanned Pacers led by 1 point. Maybe, just maybe, could they pull through? Maybe this could truly be the greatest championship run since Dirk's. But who are we kidding? The Thunder erupted with a monstrous third quarter that defined their season. Shea and J-Dub gave 15 points. Pacers turned over the ball 7 times. The Thunder locked up the Pacers offense. Everyone except for TJ McConnell, who scored 12 straight points, single-handedly keeping the Pacers afloat and doing his best Allen Iverson impression or something.
Looking to get inside. Holmgren discourages him. Tries again. Layup. That's good.
But that Thunder's defense, man, it was too much. They won the quarter 34-20. And that, my friends, was the NBA season. The Thunder took the fourth, finishing with a 103-91 victory. The first NBA championship in OKC history. Finally, OKC had done it. After they traded away James Harden for almost nothing. After Kevin Durant leaving them in free agency. After Russell Westbrook having his historic season but not being able to get it done. After Paul George had wanted out. After tanking and acquiring picks and tanking some more. And after analysts roasted them for being too young and boring and inexperienced to win. They did it. They won. They proved everybody wrong.
Congratulations. You're the 2025 NBA champions.
That celebration capped off one of the most dominant runs we've ever seen by a young team. Sure, their run will be defined by MVP SGA, but it will also be defined by their defensive effort. I'm talking about Alex Caruso locking up Jokic in round 2, Chet pinning blocks off the backboard even as he struggled to shoot, Lou Dort guarding the best offensive player he could find on the court, J-Dub even making every Pascal Siakam shot hard. Give this defense its flowers. And all of this was needed in order to bring the first championship ring to OKC. In my opinion, this had to be one of the best final series we've seen in a while. A+ basketball, very few sweeps, and a series that went all the way to Game 7. I was loving this playoffs. I told anyone that I knew to watch the games. Sure, it wasn't the most known players, but was it great basketball? That's for sure. It also triggered the start of a new NBA season, a chance to do all of this once again. I think the NBA going into the future will be very different from the NBA we have known before. We're seeing a mixture of a transition year for stars, the passing of the old and bringing in the new. But at the same time, we're also seeing a league that wants to have a bigger focus on franchise fandom, and not only player loyalty as we see in the new CBA from Adam Silver himself.
I'm sure there's a lot of NFL fans here. When the Steelers and the Packers play, Pittsburgh and Green Bay, nobody says 2 small market teams. Instead, it's 2 storied franchises. And I want to emulate the NFL from that standpoint.
So combine the both, and what do we have? Stars that align themselves with the right team, playing wise and maybe not marketing wise, may have a bigger chance at becoming global, with the NBA willing to push more small market teams due to more parity. Now, I think stars by themselves will still drive viewership, but there's going to be a lot more opportunity for smaller market stars to make a real name for themselves. Also, a weird thought. But all of the flashy, more well-known players didn't make deep playoff runs this year. It was the better teams that prevailed. The league knows where it wants to go. It's just up to the players and teams to capture the opportunity. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in this offseason, and to see what the heck the 2026 season is going to look like, because right now, for the first time in a while, I don't have a clear favorite to go win the title. Guys, thanks again for watching the video, and a big thank you to Walter Picks for sponsoring this video. If you want to join thousands of players who are winning more in fantasy and sports betting, start your free 7-day trial today. Just scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description.